Today we will learn about nutrition. In the living beings, the function of maintenance should be carried out continuously so that they can remain alive. For this function, different processes like nutrition, respiration, transportation, excretion works collectively. Processes that collectively perform function of maintenance are called life processes. In this video, we will get information about nutrition. Organisms need energy to perform various tasks and for necessary processes that do maintenance of life. Along with this, various substances are also needed for growth of the body. Living organisms get energy and substances from food. The process of taking food inside the body is called nutrition. On the basis of the method of eating food, there are two types of nutrition: autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. In nature, there are many such organisms such as green plants, algae, and some bacteria that make their own food. These are called autotrophic organisms, and their mode of nutrition is called autotrophic nutrition. Other organisms such as humans, cows, and lions depend on other organisms for their food. These are called heterotrophic organisms, and their mode of nutrition is called heterotrophic nutrition. They eat complex substances, and with the help of various biocatalyst enzymes, they break complex substances into simple substances and obtain their nutrition. Let us understand autotrophic nutrition in detail. In autotrophic nutrition, organisms make their own food through the process of photosynthesis, the process in which organisms take carbon dioxide and water from the environment and with the help of chlorophyll and sunlight convert them into carbohydrate is called photosynthesis. They get their energy requirement from the carbohydrates. The process of photosynthesis is represented in this form. For photosynthesis, carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll, and sunlight are necessary. Let's understand its process. On the leaf surface, there are microscopic pores that are called stomata. Stomata exchange gases. With their help, carbon dioxide is taken from the air and oxygen is released into the air. Similarly, the roots of plant absorb water from soil and send them upward so that the water requirement can be fulfilled. Green leaves have chloroplasts that contain pigment called chlorophyll. During photosynthesis, chlorophyll absorbs light energy. Through different reactions, light energy is converted into chemical energy. Similarly, the water molecules are split into hydrogen and oxygen. With the help of obtained hydrogen, carbon dioxide is reduced to carbohydrate and oxygen is released into the air. Organisms get energy from carbohydrates. In the form of starch, carbohydrates are stored in the leaves or in different parts. Along with energy, autotrophic organisms also need some other raw materials so as to maintain their body, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, magnesium, iron, and other substances which are obtained from soil. Pores of stomata cause a significant amount of water in the form of water vapor. To prevent this, there are guard cells around the pores of stomata whose function is to close and open the pores. When water enters inside the guard cell, they swell and the stomatal pores open. In the same way, when water comes out of the guard cell, they shrink and the stomatal pores are closed. Now, let us understand heterotrophic nutrition in detail. Heterotrophic organisms depend on the food made by the autotrophic organisms. Depending on the type of food, availability of food material, and method of food intake, different heterotrophic organisms may have different forms of nutrition. For example, some heterotrophic organisms such as yeast, mushroom, and fungi break down food material outside their body and then absorb it, while other organisms ingest food that is digested inside the body. In herbivorous organisms, the food is stationary, while in carnivorous organisms, the food is mobile. For example, to digest the herbivorous food, such as cellulose in organisms like cows, have a long small intestine. Since the digestion of meat is simple, therefore, animals like tigers have short small intestine. Some organisms get their nutrition from dead organisms, whereas some organisms get their food from living organisms. In single-celled organisms, food is taken from their entire surface, while multicellular organisms have an advanced system. Let's understand amoeba's method of consuming food. As in single-celled organisms, food is taken from their entire surface. Amoeba surround food particles with temporary finger-like extensions of their cell surface. These extensions are called pseudopodia. After this, all extensions fuses and forms the food vacuole. Inside, this complex food is broken down into simpler substances. The remaining undigested material moves towards the cell surface and is removed from the body. Let us now see how the process of nutrition takes place in humans. In humans, there is an extended long tube from mouth to the anus called the alimentary canal. The first part of alimentary canal is mouth. In mouth, the food is chewed by teeth and converted into small particles. During chewing, the muscular tongue mixes food with saliva secreted from the salivary glands. Saliva wets the food, making the food easier to move down. Saliva contains an enzyme, salivary amylase, which breaks complex molecule starch into simple sugar. After this, the esophagus passes the food from mouth to the stomach. When food enters the stomach, it expands. Gastric glands are present in the wall of the stomach. These glands secrete hydrochloric acid, protein digesting enzymes, pepsin and mucus. Hydrochloric acid creates an acidic medium and the enzyme pepsin works in the acidic medium, and the mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach from acid. Sphincter muscle in the stomach regulates the release of acidic food, due to which the food from the stomach reaches in the intestine. Small intestine is the longest part of the alimentary canal. Small intestine is extensively coiled, and due to this, it is fitted in the compact space. The small intestine receives secretion from liver and pancreas. Bile juice secreted by liver makes the acidic food alkaline, as well as bile salt present in the bile juice break down large fat globules into small fat globules, due to which efficiency of enzyme increases. The pancreatic juice secreted from pancreas contains the enzyme trypsin, pancreatic amylase and lipase. Trypsin digests the protein, pancreatic amylase digests complex carbohydrates, and lipase digests the emulsified fat. Gland in the intestinal wall secretes intestinal juice. Enzymes present in it convert protein into amino acids, complex carbohydrates into glucose, and fat into fatty acid and glycerol. Therefore, the small intestine is the site of complete digestion of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. The wall of intestine absorbs the digested food. The inner lining of small intestine has numerous finger-like projections called villi. These villi increases the surface area of absorption. In villi, there are abundant blood vessels. It absorbs food and carries the food to each cell of the body. After this, the undigested food enters in the large intestine. The villi present here digest water from the undigested material. waste material is removed from the body by the anus. Anal sphincter regulates the exit of waste material. So, today we have learnt what is nutrition and what are different types of nutrition. Nutrition. Today we will learn about respiration. In the previous video, we have learned that living beings need energy to do different tasks. This energy is obtained from food. Living beings obtain their food through the process of nutrition. For the production of energy from food, the process of respiration is important. The process of degradation of complex carbon compounds such as glucose so as to obtain energy is called respiration. Let's understand this process in detail. Depending on the need of oxygen, we can divide the process of respiration into two types, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, glucose is broken down completely into carbon dioxide and water in presence of oxygen and energy is obtained. In case of anaerobic respiration, glucose is broken down without using oxygen and energy is obtained. Aerobic respiration produces more energy than anaerobic respiration. The first step of both these processes is the same. In this process, 6-carbon molecule glucose present in cytoplasm of the cell is broken down into 3-carbon molecule pyruvate and energy is generated. Energy can be produced from the produced pyruvate molecules, but the method of production may vary. For example, in the cell organelle called mitochondria, in the presence of oxygen, a molecule of pyruvate is broken down into 3 molecules of carbon dioxide and water, and thus energy is produced. In this process, oxygen is present. That's why this is an aerobic respiration. Organisms such as yeast uses the process called fermentation, in which pyruvate molecule is broken down into ethanol and carbon dioxide in the presence of oxygen and energy is produced. Due to formation of energy in the absence of oxygen, the respiration is anaerobic respiration. Sometimes, while doing work, the need for energy increases. In such a situation, often there is a shortage of oxygen in the muscle cells. To generate energy in less oxygen, these cells break down the pyruvate into 3-carbon atom molecule lactic acid. Formation of lactic acid can cause cramp. We can see this method of generating energy in some bacteria also. The energy produced in the process of respiration is used immediately for formation of bond between ADP and inorganic phosphate, which leads to formation of ATP molecule. It is like charging a battery. Like a charged battery, ATP produced is used as a source of energy for the reaction in the cell. Whenever there is requirement of energy, it is obtained by breaking the bonds between phosphate molecule of ATP. For aerobic respiration, living organisms are required to obtain oxygen inside the body and to release carbon dioxide outside the body. The process of taking oxygen inside the body and removing carbon dioxide outside the body is called breathing. Breathing is a part of respiration process. Different methods of respiration can be seen in different organisms. In unicellular organisms, gases are exchanged by diffusion. In plants, exchange of gases takes place through stomata. There is intercellular space in between the cells, due to which cells are in contact with air. They exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen by diffusion. Photosynthesis occurs during the day. Therefore, carbon dioxide produced in cell during respiration is used in photosynthesis. Therefore, oxygen is released from cells during the day. In the night, process of photosynthesis does not occur, so carbon dioxide is released from the cells of the plants. Organisms living in water obtain oxygen dissolved in water. The fish takes water inside the body from the mouth and forcefully sends it to pass through the gills. Here, blood absorbs the oxygen dissolved in water. For respiration, terrestrial organisms receive oxygen from the atmosphere. Comparatively, the amount of soluble oxygen present in water is less than that of the atmosphere. Therefore, the breathing rate of aquatic organisms is faster than that of terrestrial organisms. In different terrestrial organisms, oxygen is absorbed by different organs. In humans, air enters inside the body through nostrils. Nostrils consist of a layer of fine hairs and mucus. These fine hairs and mucus filter the air that goes inside the body so that the dust and impurities present in the air does not enter inside the body. After this, the air reaches the trachea via pharynx and larynx. Rings of cartilage are present in the trachea to ensure the air passage does not collapse. Two bronchi originates from the trachea. One bronchus enters into one lung. Inside the lung, the bronchus divides into bronchioles. Air from the trachea flows into the lungs via the bronchi and bronchioles. In lungs, bronchioles terminate into alveoli. Alveoli is like a bunch of grapes. In the wall of alveoli, there is a network of blood vessels. The surface of alveoli is thin, due to which oxygen is taken from the surface of alveoli into the blood and carbon dioxide present in the blood is released into the alveoli. We know that lungs are present inside the ribs. While inhaling, the diaphragm becomes flattened, due to which ribs lift up and the chest cavity becomes large. As a result, air flows into the lungs and alveoli fills with air. Oxygen present in the air of alveoli comes in the blood of the alveolar blood vessel. The size of human body is large, so diffusion pressure is not sufficient to carry oxygen to all tissues. Therefore, red blood cells present in the blood contain hemoglobin. Hemoglobin has high affinity for oxygen. The respiratory pigment hemoglobin takes oxygen from the air of alveoli and carries oxygen to all tissues and each cell of the body. While exhaling, the diaphragm becomes dome-shaped and thus it causes the ribs to come down and the chest cavity becomes smaller. As a result, the air comes out of the lungs. In the process of inhaling and exhaling air, the residual volume of air remains inside the lungs. In this way, there is sufficient time for absorption of oxygen and release of carbon dioxide in alveoli. So today we learned about respiration. Today we will learn about transportation. The process of transportation of various substances in the body of the organism is accomplished by the transportation system. Transportation in plants. Let us first talk about the transportation in plants. In plants, the function of transportation of various substances takes place with the help of conducting tissue, xylem and phloem. Xylem carries water and minerals, while phloem carries food and other substances. Let us now see how water is carried by xylem. Tracheids and vessels of roots, stems, and leaves form a continuous network of water-conducting channels in the xylem tissue. This network is connected to all parts of the plant. Therefore, there are tracheids and vessels in the xylem which transport water and minerals in the form of ions. Root cells actively absorb ions from the soil. Due to this, there is formation of different ion concentration between roots and soil. To remove this difference, water enters in the roots from the soil and enters in the xylem. Due to steady movement of water in xylem, it creates a column of water in it, which is pushed upward to some height. Pressure developed by the cells of the roots, through which water rises upward to some height in the xylem vessel, is called root pressure. Similarly, there is loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of plant, which is called transpiration. This evaporation creates a suction called transpiration pull, due to which water gets pulled upward and hence it can reach various parts of the plants. Further, transpiration also regulates plant temperature. Transportation of soluble products by phloem. In plants, transportation of water is important, but at the same time, transportation of soluble products of photosynthesis, amino acids, and other substances is also important. The job is done by phloem. The transportation of soluble products of photosynthesis is called translocation. Phloem consists of sieve tubes and companion cells. The transportation of soluble products takes place in the sieve tubes with the help of adjacent companion cells. In plants, the transport of food takes place actively with the help of an energy molecule called ATP present in the companion cells. The soluble products produced in the leaves enter the phloem by using ATP, that is, adenosine triphosphate, due to which the concentration of soluble products increases in the phloem. This creates osmotic difference between xylem and phloem. To reduce this difference, water enters from xylem to phloem. This increases the osmotic pressure in the phloem. Water and soluble products move from high osmotic pressure to low osmotic pressure and are transported to different locations such as storage organs, fruits, buds, etc. Keep in mind, phloem carries substances both in upward and downward direction, whereas xylem carries only in upward direction. Transportation in human being. Blood. Blood carries out transportation in humans. Blood is a fluid connective tissue which is made up of plasma and blood cells. Plasma carries digested food, carbon dioxide, nitrogenous substances, and other hazardous substances in dissolved form, while red blood corpuscles carry the oxygen. There is a wide network of different tubes in our body through which the blood flows. We call them blood vessels. There are three types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries carry oxygenated blood from heart to various parts of the body. Since the heart pumps the blood into arteries, blood flows in the arteries with high pressure. The walls of the arteries are thick and flexible so that they can bear high pressure. Each artery is divided into small vessels. The wall of smallest vessel is unicellular thick. This allows the exchange of substances between the blood and the cells easily. Capillaries join them to form veins that carries deoxygenated blood from various parts of the body to the heart. The walls of the veins are thin and have valves so that blood flows in one direction. Heart. The heart is a muscular organ that pumps blood into the vessels. To prevent mixing of oxygen-rich blood and carbon dioxide containing blood, the human heart is divided into 4 chambers. The upper 2 chambers are called auricles and the lower 2 are called ventricles. Let us see how the heart pumps blood. When both the atria get relaxed and both the ventricles get contracted, then from the lungs, pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood into the left atrium. From the body parts, the vena cava brings the deoxygenated blood into the right atrium. Aorta carries oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to various parts of the body. Similarly, the deoxygenated blood in the right ventricle is carried by pulmonary artery to the lungs for oxygenation. There is a valve between the atrium and the ventricle which prevents backflow of blood. When both atria gets contracted and both ventricles get relaxed, then the valve between the atrium and the ventricle opens. The oxygenated blood gets transferred from the left atrium to the left ventricle and the deoxygenated blood gets transferred from right atrium to right ventricle. The ventricle pumps the blood throughout the body. So, the muscular wall of the ventricle is thicker than the wall of the atrium. The continuous movement of blood from heart to all the tissues of the body and from all the tissues of the body to the heart is called circulation. Since blood enters the heart twice in each cycle of circulation, hence it is called double circulation. Birds and mammals have double circulation. There are 2 chambers in the heart of fish. For oxygenation, the blood is carried to the gills from the heart, and from gills, the oxygenated blood is transported to all body parts. Thus, in every round of circulation in fish, blood enters in the heart once. We call it single circulation. Animals such as amphibians and reptiles have 3-chambered heart. For this reason, some amount of deoxygenated blood gets mixed with the oxygenated blood. Lymph. Sometimes plasma, proteins, and cells present in the blood migrate from the pores of the capillary wall into the intracellular spaces of the tissue. Collectively, the fluid is called lymph. Lymph is similar to plasma, but it has less protein content and is colorless. Lymph carries the fat that is digested and absorbed by the small intestine and carries the extra fluid from the extracellular space into the blood. The lymph enters the lymphatic capillaries from the intracellular spaces of the tissue. The lymphatic capillaries from the lymph form the lymph vessels that open into the vein. Maintenance by platelets. When we get hurt, there are platelets in the blood to stop the bleeding from our body. These cells make a blood clot at the place of bleeding and stops the bleeding. So today we learned about transportation. Learn about excretion. In the previous video, we have learned that oxygen and nutrients are transported to every cell of the body with the help of transportation system. With the help of these simple substances and oxygen, metabolic reactions takes place in the cell, which helps in energy generation and maintenance activities in the cell. During these metabolic activities, nitrogen-containing waste material gets generated. Such substances are harmful to the body. Therefore, it is necessary to throw them away from the body. The process of excretion helps for this purpose. A life process in which harmful metabolic waste get removed from the body is called excretion. Let us see how excretion occurs in different organisms. In the cytoplasm of some unicellular organisms, the waste such as carbon dioxide and ammonia gets collected into the contractile vacuole and are excreted outside the cell surface by the action of diffusion. Multicellular organisms have specific organs for excretion. In plants, during the process of photosynthesis, waste materials, oxygen, and water get produced. There is no photosynthesis at night, so carbon dioxide is produced as a waste product. These products are removed through stomata present in the leaves. In the process of transpiration, excess water is also removed by the stomata. During night, transpiration does not occur. Some waste products are stored in the cellular vacuoles of the bark of leaves and twigs which get detached from the plant. Some waste products are stored in old xylem in the form of resin and gum. Waste products like resin and gum are very useful to humans. The roots of the plant removed some waste products into the surrounding soil through diffusion. In humans, excretion of waste material is done with the help of excretory system. A pair of kidneys are located on the back side of the abdomen and on the both sides of the spinal cord, with the help of which the nitrogenous waste, urea and uric acid present in the human blood are separated by the process of filtration. The kidney has a bunch of thin-walled capillaries called a nephron. It is the basic structural and functional unit of the kidney. Each kidney has many nephrons which are closely packed together. The upper part of the nephron is cup-shaped and it is called Bowman's capsule. Renal artery brings the oxygenated blood into the kidneys. It gets divided into capillaries and so the blood is transported to Bowman's capsule. The Bowman's capsule has thin walls with a bunch of capillaries inside it called glomerulus. Since the walls of capillaries and Bowman's capsule are thin, so bloods get filtered before entering into the Bowman's capsule. We call it initial filtrate. In initial filtrate, glucose, salt, amino acids, enzymes, hormones, fats, dead cells, dead bacteria, toxins, medicines, an abundant amount of water is present. When the initial filtrate flows through the tubular portion of the nephron, there is selective reabsorption of these materials. The level of absorption depends on the need of water in the body. The remaining liquid waste is called urine. Since the filtration works in the kidney is performed by the nephron, therefore it is called the basic filtration unit. Each kidney is connected to the bladder by a long tube. Each tube is called a ureter. It carries urine from the kidney to the bladder. The bladder is a muscular organ in which urine is stored. Urinary bladder is under nervous control. Therefore, the release of urine from the body is under human control. When the bladder expands, urine is carried out of the body by the urethra by the pressure of expanded bladder. Apart from this, carbon dioxide is excreted by lungs and skin excretes water and salts. Due to any reason, if the kidneys stop working, then the action of excretion in the body does not happen properly, due to which harmful waste starts accumulating in the body. This increases the chance of death. In such cases, hemodialysis is used, in which the blood is filtered with the help of machines and nitrogenous waste are removed from the body. That is why we call dialysis as artificial kidney. So today we have learned about